Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Bryce Vine.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This
East.
is Sebastian Younger.
This is Daryl Ames.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
This is Dr. Bob Greenberg.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Hey, this is Pete A. Turner from the Break It Down Show, and tonight we have an album fight, 70s rock, the battle for Boston. We've got Aerosmith taking on Boston. And this is going to be an outrageous fight because Boston comes strong and Aerosmith that's all they do is come. So this is going to be good. Our guest host tonight is Tim Furnish, Dr. Tim Furnish, who's been on the show a number of times, and this is at least his second album fight. And then he brought along a guest judge named Lori Caratzola, and she is going to talk to us about Aerosmith and Boston all night long. Before we go too much further, let me get their corner announcements from Phil.
This week's album fight is an 8-round heavyweight matchup of two self-titled debut albums in a battle for Boston. In the red corner, we have the melodic hooks and guitar-heavy sounds of Boston with their debut studio album from 1976, Boston. And their opponent in the blue corner, with roots in blues-based rock, we have the bad boys from Boston, Aerosmith, and their debut studio album from 1973, Aerosmith. Let's get ready to ramble. Take it away, judges.
Thank you, Phil. And now let's also get Richard's pre-fight analysis.
Today we have two classic mid-70s self-titled debut albums. Both feature iconic songs from each band. At first glance, this looks like a monster fight, but what do the numbers say? Let's turn to our patent-pending system of analysis to find out. iTunes and Spotify popularity numbers skew heavily for Boston, and so does everything else. Sales, 17 million to 2 million. Critics and reviews, 4.25 out of 5 to 3.75 out of 5. All heavily favor Boston. In fact, Aerosmith doesn't even really come close in any category. Yes, their album has a few of their greatest songs, but I don't think the ones in between can stand up to Boston. In fact, I think for a long time I thought Boston was a greatest hits album. Every track is strong. So I had to dig deep into my research to find something that Aerosmith beats Boston at in this fight, and I found something. Aerosmith, hands down, has the worst album art in the history of music. It's god-awful. I mean fucking terrible. Your cross-eyed cousin Baxter could draw something using crayons in his feet like Daniel Day-Lewis in My Left Foot and do a better job. You could train feral cats to use Photoshop and it would look better than this album. If you had explosive diarrhea and a canvas, you could create better art than Aerosmith's album cover. Don't believe me? Pause the podcast and Google Aerosmith album cover. I'll wait. See? It's totally fucking stupid. Congratulations, Aerosmith, you won something this week. But not this album fight. Boston can see strong rounds in 1, 2, and 3, and Aerosmith is strongest in rounds 3, 5, and 8. That's one common round. The numbers have spoken. It could be as one-sided as 6 rounds to 2, but throwing in human element, we'll see 5 rounds to 3 for Boston. Back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Richard. Well, here you go. The numbers. His patent-pending system always delivers, but sometimes he does go a little bit off script to give us his human element factor, and we got that going on this week, and I'm interested to see what happens in round 3. Tim, what are your thoughts pre-fight?
Well, this takes me back to those heady days of the 70s when I only smoked pot vicariously when I attended concerts. I remember both of these bands, of course, being huge in high school. I graduated from high school in 1978, so, I'm older than you guys. Boston I always kind of liked. I don't know why. We can talk about that more later. Aerosmith, I had this sort of knee-jerk aversion to because the pot-smoking rednecks in my high school in rural Kentucky all loved Aerosmith. Therefore, I assumed that they must not be any good. I have come to see the error of my ways and later in life, and I realize what a great band Aerosmith is, and I like them a lot. But this is an interesting discussion, and as you said, it's a debut album of each of these, and there's, Aerosmith of this band is not the Aerosmith they'll be later. And Boston probably, as we'll see, didn't change a whole lot throughout their brief career.
Yeah, for sure. When we first talked about this, you and I talked about the battle for 76. And I was convinced by some of the other judges that helped keep me on task to just do the the self-titled leads and let it be the battle for Boston, because it is hard to put these bands together in a way that's fair. Boston is more of a bright star that fades out pretty quickly, whereas Aerosmith kind of just keeps burning along. So, Lori, you've never done this. What are your thoughts on the whole process, and what are your thoughts going into the fight?
Well, first, I thank you guys for having me on. I thank my friend Tim for inviting me and for his wonderful compliment, because we graduated high school the same year. I will not cop to being a pot-smoking redneck. I don't remember the 70s that clearly, but I do know that neither one of these bands were my favorites. So this was pretty interesting, reviewing both of these albums. I was surprised with my reaction to each one of them, to tell you the truth. My feelings about Boston and Aerosmith, or I should say my exposure to them, has really only been their hit songs. I definitely would have said I'm more of an Aerosmith type girl, but some things were revealed to me that were really interesting that'll come out as we go through the different rounds.
You are wearing an Aerosmith shirt, though.
I am. Yeah, again, full disclosure, I am. And I do not own a Boston shirt.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. Well, I guess let's just let's see what's going to come out in the fight. Let's go ahead and get started. Round one, More Than a Feeling versus Make It. What do you think, Lori? How did you see this round?
I thought Make It was a great opening song. I felt really excited at the very first riff. Good evening, people. I got really pumped, and I was excited for it. But to me, it sort of lost it with the Make It line. Just make it. They lost me on that, and I really wanted to give it a 10 because I really liked the song. Those lyrics just threw me off, and I did not care for it. So More Than a Feeling. Well, I read a little bit about each song too to familiarize myself, and so it's not my quotation, but somebody called it the perfect rock song in many ways, and I have to say it's true. I think that it is true. The acoustic, they reference the acoustic folk riff, leading into the incredible rock riff, and then the lead guitar, the harmonized guitar. So I had to begrudgingly give the edge to Boston on this one. And I do love the ending, the whole "she slipped away" part. Those vocals I thought were real pretty. So out of the gate, I give Boston 10, Aerosmith 9.
Wow. All right. Tim, how did you see the round?
See, aren't you glad I brought Lori in? She's intellectually honest. Her head's outweighing her heart, and I knew that about her. Like I said, she's next to my wife. She's the smartest woman I've ever met. So, that's good. I think More Than a Feeling, and I hate to be conventional, but this is one of the best damn songs in the history of the universe. It just is. I can't not listen to this song, all right? It is a great song. They use something, Boston uses something that I didn't know that goes back to medieval music called mordents. Did you know what this is, Pete?
No, no idea.
I was reading this. It's using two notes to right above each other at the same time. And Tom Scholz, of course, is a musical genius. I mean, the dude went to MIT, right?
Yeah.
He knows how to do this on a guitar. I don't even know what it means. All I know is I've always liked this song, and it has like a Baroque classical feel to me, which makes sense because I am a huge fan of Bach and Telemann. And not to say Tom Scholz is the Johann Sebastian Bach of rock, but he might be close. It's a great song. And the lyrics are, even as Lori said, not entirely stupid. Maybe they're not profound, but they're not entirely dumb like a lot of rock lyrics. Make It, I think, if Aerosmith redid Make It in like 1990 or 1980 something, it might have been a really, really great song. And the thing that came out in this, and I read a little bit about this, was how Steven Tyler didn't use his real voice in a lot of these songs. He was trying to make it more sort of bluesy and I don't know, black or something, and it just didn't work. I mean, if he'd just been Steven Tyler right out of the gate, this album might have been a hell of a lot better, maybe. It's a good song. I mean, I like the guitar part. It's, you know, Joe Perry is a great guitarist, but it's just, face it, it's up against Boston, and I scored it 10-8 Boston on this song.
Wow. A knockdown right from the get.
Yeah.
Well, I can't blame you. You know, more than the feeling, the song, it's ubiquitous. It's played. It's not only played on the radio all the time. It's the song the radio stations play in their ad about what they play on the radio. And I know we've all heard it. You know, like it just more than a feeling comes on, and then you do a little bit of Journey, and then you call that a commercial. But I love the undulation of that song too. How it builds up and then it relieves, and builds up and then relieves. And like you said, Lori, it has all the elements, everything. And I love those flammy claps that are kind of in the background and kind of call to a future time when claps are, you know, it ubiquitous in themselves. So it was neat to hear that. And I think the drumming is just right. It's just a little loose, and the song's about love. And I also love, I'm a sucker for this. I'm a sucker for really good songs about a girl's name, because that means all the Mary Anns out there get to have a song about them. And I just think that's a nice gift that Tom gives the world. And so on top of the song being fucking incredibly catchy and just the model for what you'd want to do in a rock song, you know, you've also got the Mary Ann thing, and that's tough to deal with. And Make It from the jump, like you said, it's perfect, Tim. This would be a better song a little later on, and it does kind of call to the kind of band that Aerosmith is. They're a little formulaic, but they're really good at that formula. So, you know, those, you know, albums like Pump, where you're like, yeah, we've heard all this stuff before, but I do like it. That's sort of, this is a song in that vein where it's just right there. I felt like, I don't know if you guys noticed this, did you feel like the drumming from Joe Kramer was just a little bit heavy in the mix at all? Did you guys notice that at all?
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I can't remember that.
Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I do think that this song went on for too long, though. This is a 2-minute 30-second to 3-minute 15-second song, and instead it was like 5+. So just a little indulgent for my taste, so I'm going to call this one Boston 10-9. Okay, round 2. Tim, lead us off. We've got Somebody versus Peace of Mind.
Somebody. It starts out, the guitar sound starts out weird, and then it goes a bit more conventional for Perry. This is a song that's, I think, good, but again, much like Make It, and I'll probably say this a couple times in this album, it could have been a great song. It's just not. I mean, you know, later Aerosmith, maybe a couple albums later, this is a great song. At this point, they're still figuring out who they are. And, you know, you guys, I read some of the same stuff I did about how said they were very nervous in the studio. And like we said, Tyler didn't even use his regular voice on a lot of songs. He was trying to sound too bluesy. So this is a song that's, I think, flawed. I mean, it could have been a lot better. Peace of Mind, again, one of the hits off the album, and not without reason. It's got a great acoustic intro. I think the backing vocals are particularly good on this, which is not usually one of Boston's strong suits, if you ask me. And the lyrics are actually decent. The stuff about, and I guess this is when he was still working at Polaroid, Schultz was, before the band hit. The stuff about climbing to the top of the company ladder, hope it doesn't take too long. Can't you see there'll be a day when it won't matter? There'll come a day when you'll be gone. I mean, look, okay, that's not the Bible, but that's pretty deep stuff for for a rock lyric, and I think it's pretty neat. Again, the guitars are great, the bass is decent. Pete, you probably know more about percussion than me. I just tend to think that the drumming overall is sort of maybe the biggest weak point of Boston. I don't particularly think the drummers are particularly good. I love the layered guitars at the end, and the Boston 10-9.
All right, so in round 2, I had Peace of Mind. It sounds like this era's music, you know, and this is what the mid-70s are. And if you were to make another Dazed and Confused, you know, this song would likely make the cut. And actually, I looked up the soundtrack to see if it was on it, because it is so perfect for that time. And I was surprised to find out it's not on that album, but it's on other soundtracks. And boy, the other thing I learned about this was Boston songs are in all of the video games. So like Guitar Hero has a bunch of songs from Boston on it. A bunch of those other smash and grab robbery kind of games. That when they have the radio playing, they have Boston playing. So they agree that they're sort of spot on for that kind of era. And this is back-to-back pillar songs for Boston. I mean, when they decide to go play the county fair circuit, they'll be able to, and they'll have to play both of these songs. And then you have Somebody, and Aerosmith has a formula. They're really good at it. And in this song, they sound a lot like the Stones, and that's fine. But in general, heck, the Stones are great to emulate, really, if we're going to be honest. But this song is just a bit pedestrian, and I like Tom Hamilton's work on it on the bass. I thought that was pretty good, but just not enough there to really make me go, this is one of Boston's best songs, and this is not one of Aerosmith's best songs. That's really what it comes down to. And so for me, this round is 10-8 Boston.
Ooh,
I know.
Oh my God.
Wow.
You got rough.
Yeah. Apollo Creed goes down.
Lori, what do you have to say about round 2?
All right, let me try to right the ship a little bit here. Somebody is a great song. It is a great song. Rolling bass, driving guitar. The lyrics, I found the lyrics in this to be funny. I want a lady who's not shady. She's cozy, not nosy, a floozy. It made me laugh. I thought it was really funny. And the vocals, I love the vocal work when they've got that high little do-do-do-do-do-do thing going on. I think they're the opposite of formulaic. They did have that bluesy, early Stone sort of sound to them, which I was so glad to be awakened to this. Because like I said, I knew Dream On back in 1973, but I was not aware of the rest of this album. I was listening to the Allman Brothers and Marshall Tucker. One of the things on this song because I really loved it, I really love this song, Steven Tyler said that it's Yardbirds inspired, which I found so interesting. And then when I went back and listened to it, I really did hear it. He talked about the melodic diversity. So yeah, you're going from those bluesy kind of gritty vocals into that higher, do-do-do thing. I'm not going to sing it for you. And then a strong ending with the grittier vocals. And I have to say, like Tim, you mentioned where Tyler has said they were nervous recording this first album. And so, yeah, he said that he did try to lower his voice. I love it. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it was Steven Tyler singing. So for me, it's a 10. Okay, so this is a 10. Peace of Mind. I like the opening. Again, I tried to be fair here. I love the opening, but to me, it turns into a corny song. I think Boston is formulaic. I think it has a real bubblegum sound to it. And while I like the high do-do-do-do-doos in the Aerosmith song, the woo-hoo-hoos, I was not so crazy about in Boston. And even when he's supposedly letting loose with the vocals, it just sounds so controlled that it's very engineered. There was some good layered guitar work in the middle of the song. The bass was great. I rule this one for Aerosmith 10-9.
Right. Well, we always talk about how great art divides, and here we are divided. We got a knockdown, a regular win, and a win the other direction. That's fantastic. Let's repeat this order in this round to make the later rounds a little more exciting. Let's have you lead off again round 3 and discuss for us Foreplay / Long Time versus Dream On. Good gracious.
Dream On. To mirror what I said about More Than a Feeling a moment ago, Dream On is, of course, one of the greatest songs in rock history. And it's interesting, you guys probably saw this too. It was, because remember this album came out in 73, it tanked when they released it as a single. They re-released it in, 75, 76, and it made it number 6, made top 10. So this is not only a great song in terms of vocals and the guitar work, but the lyrics are really cool, Who else has ever used the word sage in a rock song? I mean, I got to give Tyler credit for that. And that's it. But I was concerned. I mean, the man's worried about lines on his face in the early 70s. What was he? I don't know, his 20s? Oh, my God. Who knew? I mean, he had no way of knowing. I mean, who was worried about lines on their face in the 70s? They remembered other kinds of lines, maybe. And also, I didn't know this. Tyler, the man, just sang. Maybe tomorrow the good Lord will take you away. I mean, this is just a great song. I mean, I can't believe it didn't go to number 1. Probably because stiffs like jocks like me in high school refused to buy it back in 1976. So, four-play long time. Okay, yeah, it's the biggest double entendre in musical history, which I guess makes it a triple entendre. Whatever. It's got way too damn much organ in the middle of it. Okay, maybe you know, Pete. Maybe you know, Lori, what the provenance of was organs in rock songs, but whoever came up with it should have been drawn and quartered.
We agree.
It's a good song. I mean, it's a good song in many ways, but that damn organ in the middle just drives me nuts. And it's Dream On. Okay, Dream On, 10-9.
Yeah, I can see that. So for me, foreplay, my first note is Hello Bach. Here's that Bach again, Tim. And it's this song and this album really that kind of unlocks with some disco, also unlocks that whole Hooked on Classics era that happened where we had, like Beethoven's Fifth disco style, and I think that Tom is right there in the time, recognizing that there's some callbacks to be done. Yeah,
that's a damn good point.
For those of us that remember Hooked on Classics. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah,
right. I definitely. Yeah,
Fifth of Beethoven.
Fifth of Beethoven. So, and listen, like you said, Tom Stolz is a genius. He's doubling the bass with the clavinet, and everybody's trying to figure the clavinet back in this era. But this is something that was really neat the way he did it, and I like the use of the keys throughout the song and the synthesizer. And actually, Mike, I can say synthesizer. I just did. Mike always makes fun of me for that. But yeah, it's an excellent song in two parts, and I love this whole arrangement. I think it's fantastic. I love the bridge in the long time portion of the song. I think it's also very, very good. The harmonies, and just Brad Delp sells it, and I just can't think of a better way for Boston to throw their third song up there, and I don't know what could top it except for the fact that Dream On shows up. And I feel a little bit like Christopher Columbus, because I discovered something that was already there, that there's strings in the intro to Dream On. I'd never realized that until I listened to it now. I mean, obviously they've been there for 4 decades, but it was news to me. So the lyrics are great, like you said, Tim. There's everybody's got their dues to pay in life, and this is a young man singing almost to his older self, and they're about to go on a really hard road, you got to lose to know how to win. Those are great. And then at about 2 minutes, 40 seconds, we start climbing the ramp, and everything's kind of getting perilously higher and higher. And this is Aerosmith's first album, so this is the first time we ever hear, if you were just to listen to the album and never heard of him before, this is the first time you hear this, and it's like it's getting dangerous. Joe Perry's getting further and further up the neck. It's getting higher and higher, and then Tyler takes off with those primal screams that he does, and no one's ever heard this from them. It's like, oh, wow, you really can pay off, and it's such I hate to say it, but it's such like an orgasmic almost moment in the song. You're just like, oh, yes, and that makes everything else better. The lyrics get better. I liked the alarm clock kind of vibe that going on throughout the latter part of the song too. And then of course they end with the fucking gong. I'll take gong anytime you got it. I love it. 10-9 Aerosmith. What about you, Lori?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's funny you should mention orgasms, because I'll start with foreplay and a long time. You'll hear it here. I wish there was no foreplay, and I wish this took a short time. And you won't hear too many women say that in any other situation, right? I have to agree with Tim. The organ is just oh, now I'm talking about organs. This is going into the organ is horrible, just horrible. I noticed something about the guitars started sounding like space agey to me, and so I went to the computer and looked it up, and apparently that was something that they actually went for. And I think the graphics on the cover of the album were actually of a rocket ship, so they were going for this sort of space agey thing, which doesn't appeal to me. I like the initial guitar riffs, but then the voices come in, and I'm sorry, Boston vocals to me are chipmunks. I don't like it. I think the lyrics are sophomoric. The bass was pretty cool, but then the clapping comes in during. Oh no, I like the clapping. Excuse me, somebody mentioned the clapping before, and you know what? Last weekend I went to a girlfriend of mine has a husband who has a very good band who does cover songs, and they did this song, and I only had one drink, and I did dance. So it's danceable. It's an anthem. To me, it's a 70s anthem. I love it. I hate it. The end, I like the shifting chords. The lead guitar was kind of cool. To me, the beginning and the organ just completely messed it up for me, where they lost me. And it's up against Dream On. I like what both of you guys had to say about it. The lyrics are incredible. I actually pulled them up right now. And one of the things I read that Steven Tyler said about this song was that he feels that he got the chords from this song from childhood memories of sitting underneath the piano while his father would play classical music. So I'm just wondering if that perhaps even evoked these more meaningful lyrics, as both of you said, those of a much older, more experienced band rather than, druggy Steven Tyler of the 70s. And he did say that this is one of the songs, this is the only song he said on this album where he did use his real voice.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great. I don't think it was Love on the Elevator, Steven Tyler. It was actually good. It was actually good. And I just wrote just an incredible classic. And he said he got it from, he was influenced by his dad's classical music. And I think it's an incredible classic. It stands the test of time. And I scored it
10-8, a knockdown, solidly. Well, I think that's justifiable. Right. Let's go ahead and go round 4, One Way Street versus Rock and Roll Band. And Lori, let's have you kick this one off. What did you think?
Okay, well, I'll start with Rock and Roll Band. Rock and Roll Band is, if I was ever forced under duress to listen to Boston again, I would pick Rock and Roll Band. It should have been the first song on the album. It's pretty cool. Jumped right in with no foreplay, and it was much better. I think it was a fun song. I think it's a really fun song. It got me, even though at this point we're on the 4th song, I was already starting to dislike Boston more than I ever realized I had. But I kind of enjoyed it. But it still was their predictable sound, but fun. One Way Street. Loved it. The harmonica, the bluesy grit, Tyler, I looked this song up too. Tyler said he got the rhythm and the mouth harp from Midnight Rambler, and I could see that. It was as gritty and bluesy as it was also tight.
This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
That's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business, or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete A. Turner
or at JohnLG69
at the Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show.
As gritty and bluesy as it was also tight. It reminds me of an early bluesy Stones. I loved it. And so I ruled this one also for Aerosmith at 10-9.
Round 4 for you, Tim. What did you think?
Rock and Roll Band, I think, has one of the better guitar parts in Boston. I'd always thought it was autobiographical. Then I read a little bit about it, and Schultz like, we never really played on the road until we signed a contract. So they really kind of made up the stuff about going on the road and people dancing in the streets in Hyannis and all that stuff. So it's sort of faux autobiographical, which kind of takes it down a notch for me. On the other hand, it's still a pretty cool song, as even Lori somewhat attested to with Damning with Faint Praise. One Way Street, it's very bluesy, but we got that Steven is someone strangling him in the studio voice again. He's trying to be too soulsy, and we know that he admitted it later, but, the fact is that's how he sings. It doesn't sound like real Steven Tyler very well. They've written another song about, cheap women, which, maybe Tyler had a problem with in the past. The guitar, of course, it's Joe Perry on the guitar, so the guitar is always good, but I don't think the lyrics really mean that much. I don't like the way he sings on this song. And so I scored this Boston 10-9.
A little dissent. Okay, I like it. Well, let me see if I can crack the code here and get us one way or the other. One Way Street, the song is just okay. But because it's live, we do get to hear Steven without a big crowd. He talks to the crowd like, not many of you, let's get you clapping. And I vibed with that. I liked it. I'm not a huge fan of mixing in a live song here and there, but that was sort of a thing back then. A live song, an instrumental, and 10 other songs or whatever. So I'm able to go on the ride with him. We also get to hear the first time he plays the harmonica, and of course he plays it well. And then there's a warbling thing that happens. Like he would play the harmonica, and I'm not sure if he did it, but there was like a dove call kind of thing after each harmonica bit, and I got kind of distracted by that, wondering like, who's doing that? Is that Joe Perry? Is it Steven? Is it somebody else? So I found that interesting, and maybe the intro is a few measures too long, but the song is okay, and there's a magical thing that Joe and Steve have, and that's why they get to be Aerosmith. The other guys in the band are fantastic, but they're the foundation for what allows them to get to a special place. This song isn't special though. It's maybe one that's better if they write it 10 years later, if they actually have the ability in 10 years to write a song like that. But then Rock and Roll Band, like you said, Tim, it's got this kind of this faux autobiographical thing, and I'm getting a little bit, just like you said, Laura, I'm getting a little bit tired of the Boston sound. Aerosmith's changing things up. They're moving around a little bit. They're in the ring and they're on their toes a little longer.
Right.
And though Boston's a big slugger and they got all these big hits, they're a little predictable now. And the spaceship sounds are cool, but please, let's not do that anymore. We're just seeing Boston slip a little bit. And then here's something that happens in this goofy format. For those of you that haven't realized this before, but these pairings come together where you would never, Aerosmith and Boston never planned on this, but both of these songs are kind of doing the live band thing. Of course, Aerosmith is live, but then Boston puts these fake crowd sounds in like they're trying to be loud, like they're trying to be on the road, and they're singing about being on the road, and as you said, Tim, they weren't really on the road. But Aerosmith is on the road.
Right.
And so it's just this weird thing, and I thought, what? Due to some ear fatigue and some faux crowd action and not really being on the road, I gotta give this one to Aerosmith, 10-9.
Yay! Can I just point out too that not only was it faux live, what was the MIT guy's name? Because I really don't remember any of the guys. Right. He laid down all these tracks. He overdubbed everything in his home studio. And when was it Clive? I forget who it was. Maybe not Clive Davis for this song, but when they finally got someone willing to perhaps sign them, he demanded on hearing the band play it live. He didn't even have a band. He got all these guys together, and guess whose warehouse space they rented out in Boston? Yeah, right. Aerosmith.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
We're halfway through. What are your thoughts, Tim? What are you seeing? What do you think?
Look, I fall into this too, and I could probably persuade you, Pete. Lori may be beyond help on this, but remember, we have heard these songs 12 trillion times, particularly these Boston songs. In 1976, that wasn't the case. This was groundbreaking stuff in 1976. So, I mean, you got to kind of have to practice a willing suspension of, well, not disbelief, but the willing suspension of, 40 years of radio play and try to listen to this stuff on its and pretend like you haven't heard it a zillion times, which I know is almost impossible. But what Boston was doing was really, really unique back. I think we have to not get jaded about that.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is hard to hold the context of the time and to realize he's doing this in his basement on a 2-track. It's an incredible masterpiece for sure. Lori, any thoughts from you at all before we break into the second half of the fight?
To me, Aerosmith they're the cool guys. They're riding in on their motorcycles with their scuffed up boots and their cigarettes hanging out of their mouth, and
yes.
Not that I think so.
Lori likes a bad boy. That's what you're saying. Boston are wearing their little, 1970s velour tracksuits with their puffy hair, and they're sitting in their basements and going to their day jobs. Yes, he was laying down tracks in his basement. Meanwhile, Perry and Tyler were hanging out in Commonwealth Avenue in Boston at the roadie's place, and they're sitting on the end of the waterbed picking out their first songs. So to me, it's just a huge culture difference.
Kicking the floozies out of the waterbed. Yeah.
The floozies.
I said kicking the floozies out of the waterbed.
I'm sure that's true. But you want to know what, though? I heard about who was the fellow that ended up committing suicide from...
the lead singer, Brad Delp, for Boston.
Right. Well, he was surreptitiously videotaping his future sister-in-law in her bedroom.
Oh, I didn't see that. Ooh.
Oh, yes. Days, and he got called out on it. He got found out days before he committed suicide. Terrible, yeah. Life of a rock star.
You know, but Lori, that's an interesting point. That sort of recapitulates this whole Beatles versus Stones thing, right? You know, but you know, remember what was interesting about that Beatles versus Stones thing, insofar as it's relevant here, but I'm still going to say it, was that it was actually the Stones that had college degrees, although they played the street toughs, and the Beatles were working class stiffs from Liverpool that never went beyond high school. They were presented as the good guys with the education.
Right.
So, but no, it's interesting that you say that. I think that's probably a good point. I don't know what the education level was of the rest of them, but Schultz went to MIT and Steven Tyler didn't. So there you go. But he's not a dumb guy. Absolutely. They're all very bright.
Well, let's get back to it. Round 5, Smokin' versus Mama Kin. This is a good round. Tim, what do you think?
Smokin' brought me back to my heretofore mentioned 70s days when, you know, such a pot extolling rocker was the favorite of, I don't know, pot extolling rockers. What was interesting, though, was that, you know, it was a cool enough song that Anthrax actually covered it a few years ago. So I just never particularly liked the song, probably because I've never smoked dope in my life. And again, we have the organ solo that would, you know, kill a cow in the middle of it. I know that metaphor doesn't work, but I thought it sounded good. Mama Kin, okay, so, you know, I've heard this on Sirius XM since I upgraded my vehicle a few years ago. I was like, who the heck is singing lead on this song? It's got to be Steven Tyler, and it is. And I didn't realize, of course, till we did this stuff tonight, that Tyler had, you know, done that weird stuff with his voice. I have no idea what they're singing about in this song, but I do not like Smokin'. This is a pretty cool song, so I gave Aerosmith 10-9.
Nice.
Wow.
Okay, so let me. Smokin' is a nice up-tempo song. One of the things Boston likes to do is they like to tell you what a great time that they're having and that you're going to have. It's almost like they're like their own infomercial. And so they're singing about, you know, we're out there, we're smoking, we're playing, we're having a good time. And I think Delp and the harmonies that Tom puts in, you know, look, Tom can clearly sing because he's harmonizing with Brad, but how big's Tom's smile when he hears, you know, Tom or Brad Delp's voice and goes, oh, I know what to do with this. I mean, it's such a great tool for him because Tom does everything. He's a multi-instrumentalist, and like you said, Lori, he had no one else in the band. But this guy comes along with this great voice that he can do something with. I mean, he's just got to be stoked. And knowing that Brad is always going to deliver allows Tom to go do other things and fill other roles in the music, and that's what allows Boston to be great. But they're up against Mama Kin, and that hook, you know, it's on par with Mountain, anything from that era, where you can just go, oh, that is just, you know, that's rock hero shit right there, and Joe Perry does that well. It's a tough round, really, really tough for me. Both songs are very similar in style. Either band can play either song, I think. But there's a grit to Mama Kin, those scuffed boots you were talking about, Lori. And I just think that little difference, as much as I dig what Tom Scholes does, Perry and Tyler combined to get to a bigger place that I think than Tom is able to by himself. So I'm going to go Aerosmith 10-9. Lori, what did you think?
Well, I'll start with Smokin'. The opening was cool, typical rock and roll, driving chords. Then, so I'm all right? Starting, I'm okay. Then come those vocals. They sound like chipmunks to me. Corny lyrics. They talk about singing the rhythm and blues. I don't hear rhythm and blues in Boston. And the organ just, they would have scored higher with me if they had no organ in this song. Unless you're Greg Allman or somebody of his caliber, just don't play the organ. Literally, I was thinking torture instead of smoking as they were singing toward the end of this song. It was just, I heard a contrived build-up with the creepy monster. It reminds me of a creepy monster movie organ sound.
Oh yeah, that's true, Lori. That's a good one.
In case you're wondering how I really feel about it, at the end of my notes after listening to this song, I wrote "Kill Me." Oh my God!
I actually pictured Vincent Price sitting at an organ and playing it because I'm like, this is super creature featurey, and then he's got smoke, you know, billowing out his teeth. Yeah, that's absolutely what I pictured. Yeah.
Exactly. Mama Kin, I've never heard the song before. Like I said, I just wasn't tuned in to Aerosmith, and I guess I've just never been exposed to their earlier stuff. I just love this song. The vocals are so gritty. He's loose. He's laughing at certain points. I had to look it up because I was just so blown away by the song. And it's a little tidbit. He liked the song so much that he had it tattooed on his arm, except that he's so skinny that he just had Makin tattooed on his skinny little arm. Tim talked about Smokin' being so cool that Anthrax recorded it. Guns N' Roses and Buck Cherry covered Mama King. They're two rockin' bands. The lyrics, I have no idea what it's about. To me, it's all about the feel of the song. And when I tried to figure out the lyrics and look them up, I was reading about one of their songwriting techniques was that Tyler would be stoned on Tuinol, which was a barbiturate that was very popular back in the day, and he would scat into a tape recorder while Perry played the guitar. Then they would go play it back and add words to it. So, it doesn't make sense, but it's a great song. 10-8, Mama Ken.
I love it. All right, let's go. I'm going to start off round 6. So round 6, Write Me a Letter versus Hitch a Ride.
Wait, I lost you guys. Was that 10-8?
Yes.
Wow.
It's because of the organ. If there was no organ, it would be 10-9.
Lori, I'm pretty much with you. I wish I had just taken the damn organ away from
Too much organ. Yeah, too much organ for sure. Round 6, Write Me a Letter versus Hitch a Ride. And so Richard and I often talk off mic about just music in general, and Richard does all the analysis for the show, so we appreciate him. But we were talking about great American bands and what it means to be the greatest American bands. The thing we know is that the U.S. puts out great single acts. Tom Petty, Robert Johnson, Madonna, Elvis. These are singular, iconic people.
Bob Seger,
right? Yeah. There's a Bullet Band. Yes, there's Black Hearts, but it's Bob Seger, it's Tom Petty, it's Prince. And then in the UK, or I should say, the British bands, you've got AC/DC, the Beatles, all these other, the Stones, that take our
Zeppelin.
Oh yeah, Zeppelin, right? They take our singular guys and chew it up, reconstitute it, and put it back in a band form, and then it's like Aerosmith comes back in and they reconstitute what they were inspired by Zeppelin and the Stones, and give it back to us one more time. So they're sort of a copy of a copy of a copy. And I think that might be why when we think about the great American bands, they aren't seen or thought of right away. If I was to say Aerosmith or Nirvana or Aerosmith and Guns N' Roses, you're likely to say that one of those two bands is instantly better than Aerosmith. Mm-hmm. But then when you look at the whole catalog, you're like, no way, Aerosmith actually is better. So there's some kind of a problem with their perception, and I'm not sure. Anyhow, Write Me a Letter was an okay song. I didn't really want to get into how much I didn't like it. I thought it was one of the weaker songs on the album. And then Hitch a Ride is not a whole lot better. It's pop. It's really good pop, though. And this song is just a little bit too long. And I'm frankly just a little bit worn out on the Boston sound. So it's not... Hitch a Ride isn't changing the world, but then again, and neither is Write Me a Letter. So I went ahead and went this one Boston 10-9. Tim, how did you have this round?
Man, I'm starting to feel very shallow here. I don't know exactly what your all's definition of pop is other than something you don't like. Hitch a Ride is my favorite Boston song, all right? That 1 minute and 30-some second guitar solo at the end of that song, I think, is one of the best guitar solos ever. I don't know what... Pete, can you tell, Lori, is that like a 12-string acoustic before it becomes electric? I can't really tell, but it sounds like a 12-string.
I don't know. It is pretty. I admit that is pretty.
It's wonderful.
And I don't really think necessarily because something's pretty doesn't make it pop, people. I'm taking issue with you guys on that one. I think this is the best.
Tim, that was a legitimate compliment.
Oh, it was. Oh,
yeah.
Well, I think pop. I think of the Archies.
Well, if this is going to be rock, it's more on the Archies end of the spectrum. That's what we're saying. It's easy. It's gateway rock.
I'm going to find out where you live.
Corporate rock.
I know.
Yes.
I know people. Hitch a Ride. I think it's my favorite Boston song of all time. Write a Letter is okay. It's that strangling Stephen voice again, and it's just not, frankly, a very good song. I give this one the Boston 10-8.
Oh, wow. All right, Lori, how did you have round 6?
All right, well, I'm about to save my friendship with Tim Furnish. Write Me a Letter, bluesy, rock and roll. I liked it, but it became a little disjointed. It's not a good song. It's just not a great song. Hitch a Ride, the acoustic sounding opening was smooth. It had a rhythmic groove. I like the bass, the underlying bass guides the song along. I really like that part of it. The lyrics were much better than the usual goofy Boston lyrics, but the organ ruined it for me. To say that I love the song, I can't say I love the song because of the organ and then those space age guitars in the middle. However, Tim, you mentioned the guitar at the end. The song was redeemed at the end with those pretty guitar riffs. Love the bass joining in, and then there was some back and forth guitar work going on. And I noticed this, and this is a huge compliment. It was almost reminiscent at the end there of a Derek and the Dominoes back and forth guitar for me. And I give this round to Boston 10-9.
Yes.
Wow.
Let me say real quick, by the way, Lori, looking at my notes, I have written on this song, "Damn it, that stupid organ again." So, yeah.
Yeah. And you're the one telling us to remember the album in the time and the context. And you're like, that goddamn organ.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into round 7. Lori, kick us off. We've got Something About You versus Moving Out.
All right, Something About You. I thought going into this round that I was going to have to give it to Boston. Actually, you know what? So I just tipped my hat. Let me start with Moving Out. Moving Out. Oh, this is the one where I read that they sat down in the apartment where there was only a waterbed. They sat down on the edge of the waterbed, and this was the first song collaboration between Tyler and Perry. I think it's a cool song, a little ominous. The lyrics were kind of ominous and beautiful vocals, I thought. I didn't have too much else to say about it. It was kind of a simple song to me. Something About You, knowing this song, I thought that I was going to have to give it to Boston because it was going up against Moving Out, which I listened to first, and it wasn't one of my favorites. To my surprise, though, this is the point. Song number 7 now of Boston. I hate Boston. I never want to hear another Boston song in my entire life.
But there's one more to go.
I know. So I'll probably never listen to the band. And it was just predictable, just a horrible, predictable song. And this I am now redeeming myself because I thought, Tim, you've been much harder on Aerosmith than I've been on Boston, I have to say.
Really?
10-7
What?
Aerosmith.
Wow. 10-7. You got him going down hard.
Yeah, I did.
All right. Well, Tim, go ahead. Give us round 7.
Something About You. That's a song on this album everyone skips, okay? Let's just admit it, all right? The lyrics, they sound profound when you hear them, but when you actually look at them written down, you're like, these are just stupid. Yeah, it's like the DNC platform, okay? It sounds good till you actually read it. This is basically guitar playing in search of a rationale to exist, and they wrote a song around some riffs, okay? I don't like that song much. Moving Out, it's got great guitar parts, again, which is really kind of redundant when you're talking about Joe Perry. I don't know, it's vaguely something about having a new band and moving up and moving out, and I guess Billy Joel ripped off the title later for a better song. But I gave this one to Aerosmith 10-9.
Oh.
All right, Aerosmith 10-9. So Something About You for me, I'm like, Jesus, when does this band ease up? Boston is just constantly throwing down great songs, and we're getting to the point now where you're like, this is a very, very, very good album, and one of those ones that you have to respect it for the body of work that it is. Brian Tice, one of the guys that we do the show with, he also said, he's like, when I first heard Boston, I thought it was a greatest hits album. He didn't realize it was the debut, and it kind of is a greatest hits album because it really does kind of comprise the bulk of their great work. So it sort of is and sort of isn't a greatest hits album, but the sonic themes are always the same, and they're great. They're great themes. It's just Tom goes to the same well too many damn times, and it is a little bit hard to swallow. But the hooks are powerful, and when I look at what they deliver song after song, the floor of this album is exceptionally high. Maybe the peaks aren't as high as like Dream On that really elevates, but Moving Out is not one of those songs. It's fun that it's still played to this day because it's the first song and all of that. And I was thinking about that, and there's a roller coaster at Magic Mountain my daughter and I always ride when we go there, and it's called the Gold Rusher. And it's the first all metal tri-rail roller coaster ever, and it's from 1972, and it's basically as old as me. And I think, I got to ride this roller coaster just on the strength of it still being out there and still doing it. And I kind of feel like that's how Moving Out is for Aerosmith. The song is okay, but it's a gold rusher of a song. And so I'm gonna go 10-9 Boston on this one, you guys. We are going into the last round, and so I'm gonna lead off, and Lori, you're gonna go last, so you can have the honor of the last word. But we got round 8, Walking the Dog versus Let Me Take You Home Tonight. So, Walking the Dog, what can I say? It's a cover, and we're a little bit hard on covers around here because we want something original. And what they deliver is a good cover, but Boston makes good music, and you can see why they are widely played. But they're the kind of band that you play in the modern sense, just kind of a compliment to them, in that, hey, I'm going to play this one Boston song, and then a bunch of other hits, and then this one Boston song. No one wants to hear this whole album back to back to back. It's too much of the same thing. It's almost like it's one 35-minute song. So though I'm a little bit rough on Tom Scholz for the lack of different styles and different choices, I do have to appreciate all of the work that he put in and all of the great music on the album. So it's tough for me, but when I hear Let Me Take You Home Tonight, it's look, the bottom line is this. Neither one of these songs at the end are super awesome. I'm really fed up with Boston like Lori is, but I do think that Boston song is better. So I went 10-9 to close out the round for me. Tim?
Let Me Take You Home Tonight. Is that like the quintessential title for a 70s song or what? It's... And then what's that first lyric? I didn't write it down. I'm not really like this. I'm kind of shy. Oh, sure you are. You do this all the damn time. Don't try to lie. It's kind of stalky. I've watched you for so long. I'm breathing up your sweet love. Right, Lori? It's stalky.
Yes.
So, Mama, let it be. Okay, you owe Lennon and McCartney for that. All right, of course, everybody owed Lennon and McCartney in the 70s and probably still do. I don't know. This song has aged about as well as my hairline, so I don't particularly like it. Walking the Dog is okay, but it's a remake of that Rufus Thomas 63 song, and like everybody on earth has covered this song, including the Stones. I've never heard the Stones cover, but it's probably better than this one, which is, again, a little unfair to Aerosmith at this point in their career. But this song, like you said, Pete, it's a cover. You don't get much credit for a cover. I don't like Let Me Take You Home Tonight. This is a not very good version of a cover. I call this a tie 10-10.
Wait, 10, you coward. You coward.
Yep, that's me. But, when you have two sucky songs and none of them, not one is clearly better than the other one, that's I think that makes eminent sense.
That's the nature of the 10-point must system. Somebody's getting 10 points, and it's going to be both of them this time. Fair enough. Lori, why don't you give us your round conclusion here, and let's see what happens.
I did not take the easy way out on this one. Okay. Now, I want to tell you, too, I've been using these really cool headphones that I got last Christmas that my son taught me how to use, these Beats headphones to listen to it. Oh, my
You had to learn how to use headphones. That's how old you are.
I did. I didn't even know how to. I thought that I had to download my music onto them. I didn't even understand what Bluetooth was. So anyway, my son had to laugh at me. My point being that I really heard this music. This song, so now I'm on song 8 of Boston. This was so creepy. The lyrics to this song, I'm picturing this loser in the junior high school hallway looking at this girl. He says, I'm watching you. I've been watching you for so long. I've got to get loose with you tonight. I was so creeped out by it. The fade out on the song is just completely lame. So it's the end of the song and they just fade out. It's like they don't even want to be Boston anymore. Walking the Dog. I had never heard the song before. I looked it up and I did find out that it was a remake of this Rufus Thomas from 1963. It's all my fun little things that I used to skip rope to, Miss Mary Mack. Leave it to the cool guys of Aerosmith to make Miss Mary Mack sound sexy and cool with her black silver buckles. So they're the guys. I thought the lyrics, the way they sang them, were gritty and fun. They had a good time with it. You know, they're not begging the girl in the hallway to come home with them. They're saying, "Get on the back of my motorcycle, baby, and let's go." So I thought it was a great song, "Walking the Dog." 10-7.
What? Again? Again. But I practiced so hard. No. Steven Tyler says no. All right. Well, let's look and see what the heck we had happen here, because we have another 10-7 round, and basically for Lori, she's just like, I'm done with Boston. Let's just 10-7, 10-7 in the last 2 rounds. So Lori's final score is tabulating right now, and the old computer says 78-68, which actually is not the biggest spread amongst all of our judges. The Wesenator, who is very, very rough and firm, he goes 10s all the way down the board all the time. He had it 79-70. So
for who?
For Boston. So you guys are on polar opposite ends of the world. But the Wesenator is not a official judge. He's part of the CompuBox score. So
what was ours, Pete?
Well, Tim, you and I have the exact same score. We both went 77-74 for Boston, and we only differed on 1 round. Our cards are exactly the same otherwise.
Which one did we disagree on?
Well, there's actually two different disparities. You had a knockdown for more than a feeling, and then I had a knockdown for peace of mind over somebody. But we still had Boston winning. And then the rounds we differed on. I had something about you winning over moving out, and you had, and then we disagreed on rock and roll band. I did not like that over One Way Street, and you liked rock and roll band over One Way Street. But that's the only difference that you and I had.
So with Lori's fingers on the scales, who won?
Well, with Lori's fingers on the scale, it doesn't matter. Boston still takes a split decision, 2 judges to 1. So, yes.
Well, disappointing.
Well, let me say, though, remember, did you know that this is one of this album sold like 25 million copies?
Popularity does not equal superiority.
Maybe it doesn't, but, enough quantity has a quality of its own, I believe. Stalin said that, or someone I respect a great deal. Boston had 3 really good albums, although they maybe were formulaic, to put it mildly. Number 3, this one, and 2 number 1s. So from like 76 to 86, they were right there. But they never moved. You guys are exactly right, especially you, Pete. They never really moved much beyond that theme, although Amanda, interestingly enough, was pretty much largely acoustic, their number 1 songs. But Aerosmith got better and better and better and better. Then they turned into Michael Bolton. They kind of Boltonized. They started doing power ballads, but damn, they got a lot better as they went along, and 15 albums altogether. And so, the body of work of Aerosmith is clearly a lot better than Boston's. But for these first 2 debut albums, it's pretty hard to argue against Boston.
I tried my darndest.
You tried your darndest. Well, and I think that you illustrate the greater point, and we often see this where, one of the albums is a finer piece of art individually, but we all know now that Aerosmith is the much cooler band, especially because the one lady in the room says so.
That's right. That's right.
If you want to be around, one of the things that we do, Lori, on the show is we always appreciate the artists that help get us laid. And Tom's just not going to necessarily do that as well as Steven. Not that he can't, but Steven Tyler, Earth, Wind, and Fire. These are the bands that you walk out, you're like, I'm the king of the world right now. Because they take care of it. Harry Connick Jr. is another king. He just is like, let me wrap this up for you, So that matters, that cool factor.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the girl, too, so.
Yeah,
well,
that's
plus,
true.
Speaking of girls, Steven Tyler gave the world Liv Tyler, so that's another big plus.
Yeah. And speaking of girls, now Steven Tyler looks like one. What happened to him?
He was singing to himself. It's like, you got a long, hard road. You're going to do a lot of drugs and become a woman later on. So just hang in there.
A lot more lines in the face now than in 76. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see what Richard has to say in this post-fight.
Well, chalk one up for the addition of the human element. While the numbers predicted the winner, I'm glad I give myself a little leeway for my final predictions. Looking at the official numbers, we get what you'll get sometimes. 2 judges seeing things one way and another judge seeing something totally different, which is fine. The majority agreed that this was a 5-3 round fight, as the numbers predicted, plus the human element. Of the rounds to win, Boston walked away with 5 of their 9 potential points, and Aerosmith showed an impressive 8 out of 9. Well, what does this mean? Well, both bands had 2 unanimous rounds apiece, but the difference is both of Aerosmith's came from their 3 expected rounds. Boston had 1 unanimous from their expected and 1 from another round that we did not consider to be an expected round. So what does that all tell us? Well, Aerosmith's highs are really high, but their lows are what hurt them. Boston seems to be more consistent throughout, and while their peak might not be as high as their lows aren't really all that low. It's all about consistency. Also of note, of the 9 people that turned in scorecards, 3 official, of course, and 6 unofficial, only 2 of the 9 gave it to Aerosmith, which kind of works with the hard numbers I was researching for this fight. For me personally, I thought it was over after 4 rounds, but was surprised that I did end up with a 4 rounds to 4 fight. What happened is Boston starts to show its samey sameness after round 6, where the songs all start sounding the same at that point. And I end up giving credit to Aerosmith for taking some different and interesting directions the final 2 rounds. Due to a poor opener, sorry Lori, I totally disagree about Make It. It was not a good opening song. I gave round 1 10-8 for Boston, making it a 76-75 win for Boston's Boston. Great fight this week. Can't wait for next week's. Back to you guys.
Well, yeah, that's about what I figured he would say. So, well, thank you guys very much. Let me just do the disclaimer real quick. We have these bands in the dojo here in the ring because we love them. We love Boston. We love Aerosmith. We love the music. We want you guys to support these bands. We only put music in that we want to talk about. Tim and I set this up a long time ago. I'm excited to do it. I love being able to talk to you guys and exchange notes with Lori and Tim and just get different perspectives. We all heard new things about this, and that's the point, is to have these conversations and celebrate great music. So when we're nitpicky, just understand that we're nitpicking because we love them. So any closing words, Lori? What did you think, Jeff Fun? Will you come back?
Yeah, I really did have fun. I really did. And I will say this. Okay, so I'm sorry. We love the music. I'm sorry, Boston. But I have to say I really appreciate discovering this Aerosmith album. I will keep it on my Spotify playlist. I will delete the Boston. But I'll dance again when I go hear my girlfriend's band play them. I get it. I get the genre. I get it. It's just not my cup of tea. But thank you for having me. I did have fun.
Tim, what about you? What do you have to say in closing?
Like I said, I learned to appreciate Aerosmith even more, which I woefully failed to do when I was in high school back in the Jurassic Park era. Just too bad Aerosmith, I think they've done their final tour, haven't they? Otherwise, I'd want to go see them.
They got one more final tour in them. You know how it is. Wait, no, Aerosmith is doing a residency in Vegas.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they just announced it like this week.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. May have to go out
so
for that.
Do a pilgrimage. I'll meet you out there and we'll go see him Love in the Elevator style.
All right.